I got a question for you, Tank. At 147, how does a fight with you and Terrence Crawford look?
Damn.
147. Shit, I
147.
tapped that chin. You know he going to sleep.
I already know. I already know
he
he
ain't
is.
got no chance.
I already know he is.
He said no chance.
Fire between Tank and Crawford is still spreading across the boxing world, and it seems these two will be going at it for quite some time. For years, Crawford and Tank have debated over who could put the other to sleep. But recently, the conversation has shifted. Now it's about who makes more money and who has the bigger wife, quite literally, after Tank made things personal. It was only a matter of time before Crawford, and most fans, fired back. And now, after Tank suggested a potential fight between him and Crawford, Crawford had enough. He decided to lay out the bitter truth to his face. Terrence Crawford, clearly out of patience, took to X and sent a blunt message to Tank Davis. Another warning: stop being scared and fight Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis before talking about someone at a level you'll never be in. Those words hit like a left hook, and they're only adding more fuel to the fiery back and forth between two of the biggest names in boxing today. Crawford's call-out is personal. Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis aren't just fighters.
Right, grow some balls and fight Shakur, Keyshawn, and stop being scared. That's probably why you ran your girl over and beat her ass, because she know you ain't got no nuts, my people. You know? And then right there, Gervonta pretty much insinuated, if I was to fight Crawford, I'll make him look little. Then they both said, yeah, I want dudes to see me and try something. That would be his last going for greatness. And then Terrence said, go for it then. You feel me?
They're close friends of Crawford, with Keyshawn even being his protege under the guidance of their shared trainer, Brian Bomac McIntyre. But let's be honest, Keyshawn Davis hasn't exactly proven himself on the big stage. His performances against Miguel Madueño and Nahir Albright were lackluster, to say the least. Fans have been quick to point out his refusal to face Cuban phenom Andy Cruz, who humiliated him 4 times in the amateurs. Still, this is the level Crawford believes Tank should be competing at, not going around constantly mentioning Crawford's name. And while there's some controversial truth in that claim, some fans argue that Tank might actually stand a chance, maybe even pull off a win, if he ever steps into the ring with Bud. Unsurprisingly, Tank isn't interested in the 2 names Bud mentioned. Gervonta "Tank" Davis has built a reputation as a box office.
Gervonta Davis speaking about you. Is that ever a possible fight?
Yeah, if he want to dare to be great, he can be like all the other fighters that moving up 2 weight classes and, you know, daring to be great.
You would fight him.
Man, tell him to come up there.
He got to come to win 54.
He said I got a glass chin, so tell him to come and touch it.
Wow.
Office superstar. He knows his worth and has no intention of giving Keyshawn Davis the spotlight, especially when Keyshawn doesn't bring a fan base or marketability to the table. Then, there's Shakur Stevenson. While he's technically brilliant, critics have labeled him boring due to his ultra-defensive style. Even Eddie Hearn, who signed Shakur in hopes of turning him into a global sensation, might be facing an uphill battle trying to market him in the U.S. From Tank's perspective, a fight with Shakur isn't worth the risk or effort, especially if he's expected to carry the entire promotional weight. Still, Crawford wasn't done. This time, he took things up a notch. In a scathing tweet that has since been deleted, he mocked Tank's character and even dragged up his personal controversies. That's probably why you ran your girl over and beat her ass. Because you don't. Get no nuts and she knows it, Crawford tweeted, ending the message with a laughing emoji. We've seen boxing rivalries before, but none that have escalated like this. Normally, fighters trade shots about resumes or fighting styles, but when you start bringing up family and throw personal dirt like this, it crosses the line. The jabs are brutal, and they reveal just how deep this feud has gotten. Crawford isn't just questioning Tank's career moves. He's going after his pride. Tank, of course, didn't take the insult lying down. He clapped back, accusing Crawford of chasing paydays instead of greatness. According to Tank, Crawford's recent call-out of Canelo Alvarez for a mega fight in Saudi Arabia isn't about legacy. It's about locking in a massive retirement check. Y'all really think he's chasing greatness? Tank said on X, "He's not. That's what he has to do to make decent money." The numbers seem to back up Tank's claim. Crawford's last fight against Israil Madrimov reportedly brought in a disappointing 75K to 100K PPV buys, a far cry from the blockbuster figures Tank regularly pulls with every outing. Crawford, however, sees things differently. He claims that moving up 2 weight classes to challenge the unified super middleweight champion is about cementing his legacy. Legacy, that's the word he uses. But Tank isn't buying it. To Davis,
You got guys who are really, really, really good, and they're not really hell-bent on becoming a star. I put you in that category. I put Terence in that category. Maybe Shakur, where they feel like they don't really want to, like, Terence ain't bothered about going to premieres.
Crawford's attempt to leap 2 divisions without first proving himself at 168 pounds smells more like desperation than greatness, and fans are split. Some applaud Crawford's ambition, seeing it as a bold move to secure his place in history. Others side with Tank, believing the Canelo fight is more about chasing a payday than chasing glory. The tension between Crawford and Davis isn't new. It's been brewing since the aftermath of Crawford's dominant win over Errol Spence Jr. As Crawford celebrated becoming the undisputed welterweight champion, Tank Davis made headlines by boldly claiming he could beat Crawford at 147 lbs. Crawford, appearing on The Breakfast Club, responded calmly but with conviction. "If he comes up to 147 thinking he's just going to knock Terence Crawford out," he said, "he's got another thing coming." The response was measured, but the message was clear. Crawford isn't someone you intimidate, and certainly not someone you take lightly. Despite the war of words, a fight between Crawford and Tank Davis still seems unlikely. Crawford has his sights set on Canelo Alvarez, a matchup that offers both legacy and a massive payday. Meanwhile, Tank Davis is already locked in for his next bout against Lamont Roach Jr., scheduled for March 1st at...
How you feel about that fight? Is it even possible at a catch weight?
Nah, ain't no catch weight. You come up to 47.
Not even entertaining a catch weight.
No, I'm not.
He's a champ though too, undefeated.
And what champ? Come on, man, tell me what belt. You know boxing. You forgot Devin Haney is undisputed. Devin Haney got all the belts. He the champ. Nobody else the champ. I'm gonna come up here where the big boys at.
All right.
The Barclays Center. Fans of both fighters are left wondering, is this all just talk? Or could there be a future where Crawford and Tank actually step into the same ring? What makes this rivalry even more compelling are the controversial takes surrounding it. Some fans and analysts argue that Crawford is punching down by engaging with Tank, who fights at 135 lbs. They believe the size difference is too great, that any fight at 147 or beyond would be a complete mismatch. Others, however, believe Tank's confidence is misplaced, that he's severely underestimating just how dominant Crawford has been at higher weight classes. Either way, this feud has transcended boxing styles. It's about ego, legacy, and respect. And until or unless they meet. In the ring, the tension will only keep building. And then there's the issue of marketability. Crawford may not be the pay-per-view draw that Tank is, but his accomplishments speak for themselves. The question is, in the world of boxing, should...
Let's not lead with ego. Like if you hear somebody like Tank say, 147, I knock Bud out.
Well, he just talking. Mm-hmm. You know, he got the confidence in himself that he believed that he can do that because he's been knocking all these fighters out that he's been in the ring with, you know. So no knock to Tank, but there's definitely levels. You know,
legacy outweigh popularity. Tank, on the other hand, is no stranger to controversy. Critics accuse him of cherry-picking opponents and sidestepping the toughest challenges in his division, including names like Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. That's why Crawford's comments about Tank being scared resonate with fans who feel Davis has yet to truly test himself against the elite, but Tank's supporters see it differently. To them, he has nothing left to prove. His undefeated record, devastating knockout power, and ability to sell out arenas speak louder than any criticism. Terence Crawford has ended 31 of his 41 bouts inside the distance. Gervonta Tank Davis boasts 28 knockouts in just 30 fights.
I mean, if he want to retire with the career that he got, then go ahead and do whatever you got to do. So I disagree with it. I think it's soft, but that's on him.
If these two wrecking balls of the sport ever collided, it would be pure chaos in the ring, and chaos is where legends are forged. Crawford's clinical dismantling of opponents stands in sharp contrast to Davis's jaw-dropping detonations that seem to come out of nowhere. Yet both men share one undeniable trait. When they smell blood, the fight is as good as over. Brian Norman Jr., a man who has sparred with Crawford, perhaps put it best. He described a younger version of himself being taught a harsh lesson in maturity by Crawford. According to Norman, Crawford doesn't rely on one big shot. Instead, he breaks opponents down with surgical precision, a death by 1,000 pinpoint punches. He doesn't necessarily one-shot people, Norman said. But what he does is, he just beats you up, and then he kills you. On the flip side, Norman reserved his highest praise for Tank when it came to raw, unfiltered power. As far as one-shot power, I gotta give that to Tank. But here's the rub. Crawford's brilliance lies in his ability to adapt on the fly, switching stances, adjusting angles, and exploiting weaknesses in real time. That's not to say Davis lacks ring IQ. Far from it. His boxing mind is criminally underrated. Still, it's hard to ignore the contrast. Davis thrives in chaos, while Crawford is the ultimate puppeteer, pulling strings until his opponent becomes an unwitting participant in their own destruction. When Roy Jones Jr. weighed in on the hypothetical matchup, he didn't hold back on Davis's explosiveness. That's the one thing Tank's got that Errol Spence didn't have, Jones said. In boxing, an explosive fighter can go a long way, and his words carry weight. Spence, an elite technician, couldn't withstand Crawford's relentless adjustments and suffocating pressure. But Davis is cut from a different cloth, a predator, who can flip a fight with a single soul-snatching punch. Critics may point to the difference in competition. Crawford's resume includes elite names like Errol Spence Jr., Sean Porter, and Kell Brook. Tank's, by comparison, is still growing. But in a sport where one shot can erase a game plan, all it takes is one night to shift the narrative forever. Crawford has gone hunting in some of the sport's most treacherous waters, and not only survived, but emerged.
Bad dude. See, what I like about Tank is Tank brings something different. You know, back in the days, everybody had something. Muhammad Ali was a mover boxer, George was a puncher, Ernest Shavers was a puncher. Everybody had something they brought to the table. Larry Holmes had a jab. Mike Weaver
emerged utterly dominant. Davis, on the other hand, has built his resume on names like Leo Santa Cruz, Ryan Garcia, and Rolando Romero. Impressive, no doubt, but not exactly the murderer's row Crawford has faced. And yet, that's what makes this fantasy matchup so fascinating. Davis has a unique ability to make elite fighters look ordinary, suggesting he's more than capable of rising to Crawford's level. Technically, physically, and mentally, he's a threat no one can take lightly. Still, Crawford would enter the fight as the naturally bigger man. He's got the reach, the frame, and the experience of carrying. Weight all the way up to 154 lbs. The size difference would be real, but so would the danger on both sides. Davis, while shorter and more compact, has never had trouble carrying his power up through weight classes. But stepping in with someone like Crawford at 145 lbs would push Tank.
probably in your top 10, maybe even your top 5.
Where do you rank Terence in your opinion?
I put him in the top 15, maybe the top 10, because he definitely has the skill of a top 5. Just that he hasn't had the opposition that some guys were able to get, and that's not his fault. He just made one of the best fighters in his weight class look like nobody. That's pretty damn good. Now
into uncharted territory. Stylistically, Crawford's versatility would be his greatest weapon. His seamless ability to switch between orthodox and southpaw could frustrate Davis. forcing him to think instead of react, a scenario where Tank is arguably at his weakest. But let's not pretend Davis is some mindless slugger. His calculated destruction of Ryan Garcia, ending in that perfectly placed liver shot, was a masterclass in ring IQ. Tank doesn't just throw punches, he sets traps. The question is, could he set one for a fighter as seasoned and cerebral as Terence Crawford? Still, Davis brings one thing you can't train for: the X factor. That freakish ability to end a fight in the blink of an eye. He doesn't need to win rounds. He just needs one moment. Against a technician like Crawford, that's a terrifying weapon to carry. And make no mistake, Crawford can be touched. Jose Benavidez Jr. found early success. Egidijus Kavaliauskas even managed to wobble him. If Davis lands clean, it could spell the end, no matter how dominant Crawford might have been up to that point. Ultimately, this hypothetical clash boils down to two burning questions. Can Davis find and exploit the opening he needs to land that fight-ending punch? Can Crawford impose his will and drag Tank into deep waters, where his explosiveness might start to fade? These aren't easy questions. That's why the idea of this fight continues to set imaginations ablaze. Tank, the big hitter from Baltimore, has claimed he'd knock Crawford out. Maybe it was tongue-in-cheek, maybe not. But the bigger man has already warned him, don't punch above your weight. That's the kind of trash talk that fuels real debates. And in this case, it's warranted. Tank might hold the edge in raw power, but Crawford's mastery of the sweet science makes him a nightmare for any opponent. The truth is, both men would enter the ring armed with the tools to dismantle the other. And that's what makes this fantasy matchup so damn real. The outcome of this dream matchup would hinge on one key factor. Who could impose their style first? Crawford with his suffocating control, or Davis with his explosive chaos? While a fight between them may never materialize, the hypothetical battle lines are crisp.
Oh, stop closing up. Gotta let it go. Keep turning, step around. Keep turning.